Hi everybody and welcome to today's video. Today I am doing part 2 of my wrap up for the month of May. I always stumble over that because I'm like, what month are we in? What month did we just come out of? But it's part 2 of May. The first part I actually did in a reading vlog that I shared during that month as well, so I'll link that in the cards if you are interested in checking out what I was reading here, there and everywhere. So I'm coming back with the last, I think, 7 books that I read for the remainder of the month. So kicking that off, we have Without Saying a Word, Master the Science of Body Language and Maximize Your Success by Patrick and Kasia Ewazowski. This one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars. It was another audiobook that was due to expire over on Audible. The essence of this book is basically to help you build stronger relationships, elevate your communication skills and boost your confidence for the everyday person to the business person. Although very dry and straightforward in its approach, knowledge was definitely gained when I was listening to this one, and it did make for interesting listening. It also just made for a refreshing break from all the fantasy that I have been absorbing as well. That was due to expire on Audible. Again, you can see the theme. That was kind of like me picking out the ones I was most interested in at that time and thinking, right, how many of these can I read before they're due to expire? And the next one of those was Heckless Children by James Brogden. This one I gave a 3.5 out of 5 stars to. So the synopsis is, a decade ago, teacher Nathan Brooks saw 4 of his students walk up a hill and vanish completely. Only one of them returned years later with no memory of what happened during that disappearance. And a body is found in the same ancient woodland where they disappeared all those years ago. It's believed to be one of the missing kids. Honestly, I don't think I really gave this one all the attention that I think that it truly deserved. But nevertheless, I really did enjoy it. The plot itself kind of reminded me of Mythago Wood by Robert Holdstock. I have a Fantasy Masterworks edition of that and I absolutely loved it. I really do keep meaning to go back and continue on with the series. I think the reason I didn't give it the attention that it deserved was because my concentration just kept dipping in and out of focus. There were quite a lot of characters to keep track of, and I do struggle with that when it is just solely a listening experience and I don't have like names that I can look at on paper and kind of embed them a little bit deeper into my memory. As well as that, we had a narrative that travelled back and forth in time quite frequently, so I think there was just some plot devices that were used that were just a little bit difficult for me to keep in my grasp within the listening experience. Following on from that, I listened to a thriller called Soon by Louis Murphy. This one I gave also a 3.5 out of 5 stars and is again an Audible expired one. It is a slow burning, atmospheric, isolated story about a small town trying to survive the dangers of the mist and the supernatural entity waiting out there for them. In tone, this kind of gave me a combination of Stephen King's The Mist and Samuel Fisher's Wivenhoe, and with the prior one I hadn't read the Mist before, but I feel like I'd seen the TV show for it and it left a bit to be desired for me. And with Wivenhoe, that one wasn't as intriguing as I'd hoped it to be. A lot of what I was interested in for Wivenhoe happened off the page, and so I just felt like it was a little bit slow and meandering for me. Soon had a collection of those things that I was after from those stories, and I enjoyed how it kind of delivered that for the most part. I do have mixed emotions for it. I feel like the unfolding of the events themselves was all-consuming. Yeah, at the heart of the story, this was definitely a character-focused and driven story. And like the previous book, Heckless Children, struggled to keep track of who was who and how they connected to each other for, you know, the greater plot, as well as what was actually happening regarding the supernatural aspect of the mist and what was out there, kind of like calling to people. But even though I couldn't always quite grasp how we got to some scenes, I did nevertheless find the high action scenes super immersive and effective. Next on from that, you guessed it, another book from Audible due to be expired. They have since expired now. This is Whisper Down the Lane by Clay McLeod Chapman, and this is a horror thriller. I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. It's inspired by the McMartin preschool trials and the satanic panic of the 1980s. This was such a dark and awful tale in its entirety, made even more sinister, I find, from being, you know, inspired by true events. I feel like this book showcased some fantastic storytelling with a main character that was just so fascinating to analyse, and just to see, like, in a timeline of events, how his decisions as a young child, his almost spontaneous decisions, trying to garner the right attention, impacted his life, you know, for the worse, and others around him so devastatingly. I thought this was a fantastic literary piece with blends of thriller, horror and excellent character study. I have 3 more books to talk about for the rest of this video. The first one of those is Godfather Death by Sally Nichols, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It's basically a new look at the timeless themes of mortality and the consequences of greed, inspired by the Grimm brothers fairy tales. This was, yeah, definitely a harsh book, but a good brief showing for kids to learn just to be wary of strangers and people in general and what their ulterior motives can be, as well as, you know, greed and learning to appreciate what you already have and being grateful for that. The illustrations in here were absolutely gorgeous as well, and they were bold and striking in colours, which also I feel added to soften the blow of some of the harsher elements of the morals of the story. It was very fablesome in tone. I finished up reading The Echoes of the Falls by Adrian Chbosky. This is the 3rd and final book, The Hyena and the Hawk, which I gave a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So just a brief kind of synopsis for this one without spoiling too much. From the depths of the darkest myths, the soulless plague people have returned. They will remake the world as though nothing had ever been. I do have a favourite quote from this one, and it is, "The world was a mirror to them, in which they only recognised their own face." This honestly was such a stunning conclusion to the trilogy of The Echoes of the Fall. The finale was filled with heartache and brutal battles, but with it came like a slow understanding of a wider range of people. I feel like enemies became allies and friends became family, and the relationships that were so hard won throughout books 1 and 2 were so greatly knitted together by the end. At times I had been overwhelmed by, again, the abundance of characters. We follow a wide cast of characters and they're all interconnected in some ways, and some of them are villainous and some of them are, you know, more pure, and some of them are just completely morally grey. But, you know, on the whole, this was an incredibly satisfying series of books. So I feel like that is one series of Adrian Chbosky that I finished. I'm slowly working my way through them. I'm currently reading The Final Architect, and I've got, I think, the 2nd book on the go at the moment. I've read Alien Clay, which was a standalone, and I'm about to start Model Service, which is also a standalone, I do believe. Okay, and the last book for today is one that I actually have to show you a physical copy of. This is Cat Lady by Dawn O. Porter, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. It is a story about defying labels and forging friendships. It's for the cat lady in all of us. There was a quote that I did really like, but it was at the end of the book where there was like this author interview. I don't know if it was at the actual end of this book because I was listening to it as well as reading it. So the edition that I had where I was listening to it had a little section where the narrator for the book was interviewing Dawn or Porter, and I think they're quite good friends in real life as well. And Dawn had said, "Happiness is really simple. When people allow you to be yourself, you are at your most content." And I really loved that. I thought that resonated deeply with me. So for my review, I found this was a great story, and it was one that I wasn't expecting maybe a lot from, really, because it's not something that I typically gravitate towards. So it's not like I was expecting anything amazing or anything rubbish. I just, you know, in perspective, just didn't expect much at all, to be honest. I didn't know if it was going to move me greatly, and it did. It really did. It's something that I think I would probably, you know, peruse through her backlog of books and see if anything else stands out to me. This was gifted to me a couple of years ago, and I'm glad I did get to it. Pet grief, I feel, is just so real, and this book really encapsulated that. It was inspiring, empowering, funny, full of layers, and just incredibly moving and joyful. The characters were absolutely fantastic in this, and I really enjoyed our main character Mia, where life took her, as well as this courage she had in restarting everything in her own way, as she actually wanted to present and be her happiest, truest self. And I really enjoyed that. So yeah, it's also about cute cats, animal human interactions, so, you know, pet friendships, companionships. It was very dear and close to my heart now. I think this is going to be a lovely book that I'll think about from time to time. So that is it for all the remaining books that I read during May. Thank you so much for watching. As usual, if you've read any of these books that I've spoken about today, do let me know what you thought about them in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. I shall catch you in another video soon. Bye.